Get ready as Fighters Inc. presents 5 rounds in the FightMad Zone with the biggest names from the world of combat sports. Hosted by Joe Long. This is the FightMad Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the FightMad Podcast, hosted by myself, Joe Long from Fighters Inc., as we enter our 25th year anniversary in the combat sports industry. This week, it's a bit of a different one. We got the best of compilation FightMad Podcast. First 8 guests have been absolutely amazing, and we're going to take the best bits from each guest and throw them all together. But I couldn't do that without my main man, super producer of the show, who's coming on today to have a little chat about the FightMad Podcast and what we got planned in the future and what's been before. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the FightMad Podcast, the one and only Mr. I could go into such a rant about this man, and he's sitting there looking at me, staring at me. He hates all this stuff. Mr. Andreas Georgiou. Andreas, welcome to the FightMad Podcast.
Never thought I'd hear you say that, Joe. Welcoming me onto my own show that I concepted with you. But what a pleasure, what a privilege it is to jump on with you to look back at the first 8 episodes. And something which has been sprung on me as well, because originally we jumped online for you to do, obviously, the introduction for this best of episode. And you said, why not? Why not me come on? And, of course, when Joe Long asks, you have to oblige. So it is... Yeah, no, it's an absolute pleasure, Joe. Obviously, the man behind the scenes, but I get to come on with you now on the FightMad Podcast.
No, it's a team effort, and as you said, we put together the concept together, and it's great to have you on so we can talk about what this episode's got in store, because you know more what it's got in store than me. Let's be perfectly honest. I'm just the guy what turns up every couple of weeks. So, what we got in store?
No, we were kind of, let's be honest, Joe, you've been very, very busy. You just had a hugely successful event at the Arnold Sports Festival in the UK, holding the Combat Sports Zone, which had a number of amazing events, amazing exhibitors, and again, truly showcased, the great work that Fighters Inc. have done, over the last 25 years, and bringing that to the forefront once again. And we were toying up, should we have a new episode this week, or should we maybe take a little bit of a break? And I think we found the perfect middle ground, which was, let's look back at some of these amazing moments from the first 8 episodes, because 8 episodes doesn't sound like a lot, but the things that have happened on these 8 episodes with the great guests that we've had, like, Michael Page and Michael Bisping, Mauricio Sulaiman, Scott Coker, the list goes on and on. I don't think one episode goes by, Joe, where me and you aren't shocked by something or surprised by something, because this environment, the whole idea that we concepted, the whole reason we concepted the FightMad Podcast is to bring something alternate to, the combat sports industry. And we don't want to say we're kind of sick of the same old questions, but we felt like there was a new avenue to explore, and that's why the 5-round structure has been so important to the success of this show. And obviously, as we know ourselves, and hopefully the listeners know, always brings out something different from our wonderful guests. So I kind of wanted to celebrate that, the first 8 episodes, the quality of content that's happened here on FightMad. Joe, you've done an absolutely terrific job. I can't take any credit for the level of guests that you've managed to pull into the show. That's all down to you and your amazing reputation in combat sports. And every time they come on, we just get absolute gold on the microphone. So that's what we're here to witness today. We've put together the best moments from the first 8 episodes, so it will run very similar to every other FightMad podcast. Round 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, but in each of those segments you'll be seeing a little snippet of each guest that we've had on the FightMad Podcast, and it's also a good opportunity. Maybe you've not fully embraced the show, you've not really been able to enjoy every single podcast. This will allow you to get a glimpse into everything that we've done so far. So it's very exciting.
Well, I just like the way you're talking about me. I'm feeling like a bit of a superstar. It's amazing, Andreas.
Makes a change, right? It makes a change. You're the hype man usually.
I'm usually the hype man. But no, it has been an amazing 8 shows, and what you said there, we've definitely had some people tune into some of the clips, but not hear the whole podcast. So this is a great show. If you're a new listener, to check out what we do, and if you've only caught 1 or 2 of the shows, have a listen to this one, because the best of the first 8. I mean, as you said, we've had some amazing guests, and we always come off, and there's always a shocker thrown in. I mean, I think one of the biggest shockers for me was Mauricio Sulaiman, talking about the Pope, that absolutely threw me, and his whole corner team threw me. And I'm sure there's been some shockers in there for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, what people obviously won't know is that when we record the podcast, I can see Joe and the guest, but they can't see me because I'm in producer mode. So I'm able to freely react. But that, Joe, was when Mauricio was talking about his corner team, which will obviously feature in this best of episode. I'd never seen you openly out the shows react that way. You were completely taken aback by it, and it's mainly because every time we've asked the guests that question, they've said answers such as my dad, my brother, my mom, my best friend, like kind of answers that you would expect from people in terms of building a corner team. And Mauricio took it in a complete different direction, but in an amazing way, and it was really, really enjoyable, but very surprising. But little nuggets like that, and Dapper Laughs talking about his inspirations, Michael Bisping about his toughest moments. Every single episode has a gem like that, and that's what we want to share with you all in this best of the first 8 episodes.
Most definitely. Right, you ready to get into it?
Let's do it, Joe.
Round 1 is the FightMad Podcast, hosted by myself, Joe Long, and Fighters Inc. as we approach 25 years in the combat sports industry. You're in tuned to the best of compilation. It's time for round 1.
Seconds out. Round 1.
My personal first fight, I was about 15, and it was with a 12-year-old boy called Matt Pickering, and he beat the shit out of me. He was 12, I was 15. I lived on a council estate in Brooklands, called Brooklands in Weybridge. It's just behind the Brooklands racecourse. And there's loads of us on there. There was the whole council estate was sort of divided in 2, and we'd all chuck stones at each other and chase each other around and and you had to pick sort of what side you was on. And on the other side, there was this kid called Matt Pickering, and he was, if he ever watches this, he'll be laughing. He's a fucking massive lump now. I've seen him. He's fucking huge. But even when he was 13, he was about fucking 6 foot. He was a big lump, but he was 13. And he went around telling everyone on the estate that he was going to beat me up. And because I was 15, I was like, fuck it, I'll fucking have a fight with him, but I was shitting myself because he was just chilling everyone. He was this little fucker. And right at the end of the estate, there was like a wasteland that was just all shitty, and we arranged to meet up. That's where everyone would arrange to have a fight, and we arranged to meet up there. And I can remember everyone was there, and I walked up to have a fight with him, and we started laying into each other, and he pulled my fucking jumper from the back over my head, pulled the jumper over my head, so it was over, like, from the back all the way over, and then just beat the fucking shit out of me. Luckily, it was before phones, so no one recorded it. But that was my first, and I can remember being smashed up, but proud of myself. Do you know what I mean? I can remember coming, not because everyone took the piss out of me because he was 13, but I stood my ground, and we became friends after that, actually. And whenever I see him in a pub, he always says, I beat the shit out of him when I was 13. But that was my first of many. I'll be honest with you. I was very small. I was a small kid. I was a small, tiny kid in comparison. But I'd have it. Do you know what I mean? I used to get involved.
My biggest memory is my first competition fight, which I never even really knew what was happening because the Japanese didn't speak much English. And all of a sudden, they just told us to line 2 sides of the wall. And I remember this green belt called Chong I had to fight. I was a green belt, he was a green belt. and they said competition, which I didn't understand at all. And as soon as he started, bang, he hit me with a low kick to the stomach, and he got a point. I thought, wake up. So then I done a punch to the face, and they said something to me and pointed to me. I thought, that's it, it's 1-1. And then he kicked me again in the stomach, and they said, that's it, it's finished, it's all over, you lost. And I said, I went, what happened? I sat down and said to the person next to me, I don't know what that was all about, what happened? I said, I thought I scored a point. He said, no, they give you a warning for contact. I went, I didn't understand. And that's all we done. And then Suzuki says, right, you've got to fight 2 weeks' time at Crystal Palace for the British Championships. And that was it. That was my first competition fight. The next one was the British Championships at Crystal Palace.
How old would I have been? Probably about 11 or 12.
Let's go.
What was the first time I got punched in the mouth, really? I didn't even throw nothing back. I got punched in the mouth. So where I live, or I used to live, sorry, I was standing there with a friend of mine, and this guy was running, like jogging. Well, he wasn't jogging, he was running past us. And my friend, as he walked past him, threw something at him for no reason whatsoever, just threw something at him. So he's turned around, and he was probably a few years older, probably about 16 or 17. He's run about 50 or 60 yards, turned back, run towards us, come over to me, and went crack in the side of my face. That was the first time I'd been punched in the face.
At 11 years old? Well,
yeah. Probably, let me work it out. I can actually work out. So it would have been 92. Yes, 11 years old.
Wow.
92. I remember when it was, because it was the Euros. And I remember what day it was as well. Later on that night, England were playing Sweden, and they lost 2-1 in Euro 92. I remember that.
Wow, there comes your you know, what's benefited you throughout your career, your geekiness, your memory. With that, I can't believe that you know the day and the score of that game, because you are a bit of a geek, right?
What the winning goal is? He was a former Parma and Leeds player called Thomas Brolin. For any football fans, will know who Thomas Brolin was.
Tremendous.
In 1992, I remember watching the game. That game where England got beat 2-1, and I was just, all I can think about is, I'm gonna one day I'm gonna get this geezer back. One day I'm gonna get this geezer back.
First fight, if you will, as usual, Joe, it's the same old story, sticking up for somebody else. You know,
we know that one. Yeah.
Got me in a lot of trouble when I was a kid. Yeah, of course, I like to fight. I did, and I never shied away from confrontation. But most of the time, I was fighting someone else's battles. On this occasion, and it just kind of sets the tone, really. I was this is not normal behavior. I think I was 8 years old. I was 8 years old in the playground, and this guy, Martin Rimmer, God rest his soul, he's dead now. He passed away in an accident in the army. Very, very nice guy. And another friend of mine that I went to school with, Tim Fagan. I was walking along the playground, and he was pushing Tim into the fence. So I walked over and said, hey, what are you doing, mate? Do you want to do that? Pick up someone your own size. And he squared up to me and got in my face. And we're 8 years old. He probably thought I was going to push him or something like that. But I was like, don't, stuck the fucking nut on him.
At 8 years old, you were sticking the nut on him.
8 years old. It was a good one as well. And I got suspended from school. And that was kind of like, yeah. So when you ask me, what was your first ever memory of a fight? And I think there might have been some before that, but that's the one. I'm 42 now, Joe. Do you know what I mean?
That sticks in the mind.
Anything younger than 8, it's hard to access those files. You know, I forgot the password a long time ago. Do you know what I mean? But that one kind of stuck out. So there you go.
Brilliant.
I have perfect recollection of my first memory of boxing. I was very little, maybe 2 years. I have no idea how old I was. I was joining my father. He was carrying me, holding his hand. We enter an arena, which I could see a boxing ring, all the lights are off, only the lights on the ring, a lot of smoke, people screaming, and there were two kids right there punching each other. And I remember sitting down and being very, very not afraid, but impact. It had a heavy impact to see what was happening inside a ring, an arena like that. And then by the second, third round that I watched, I was completely captured. Ever since that moment, boxing has been my passion. It's a great sport, and I have that. I can smell. I can perfectly see and picture when I was walking down the aisle of Arena Coliseo in Mexico City.
Seconds out. Round 2.
I mean, it has to be a fighter that came from a traditional martial arts background, because that's where I'm from, right? And kind of made the transition. And this is the fighter I feel the most respect for, as far as, you know, the transition. And I'll tell you, it's Kung Lee, because not only is he a friend, but let me tell you his little journey here. So he comes from Vietnam, and he was part of the fall of Saigon, helicoptered out, you know, getting shot at, the whole thing, lands here in San Jose after a period of time, starts going to high school, starts wrestling, starts, you know, he's physical, starts going to traditional Taekwondo classes. And he had an instructor here that I didn't even know who he was, but it was very, you know, inside the Vietnamese community, he had a Taekwondo instructor. And then he starts fighting in Kyokushin fights, right? He fought a kid named Arnie Solbudov from Kyokushin, which was one of Master Ishii's from K1's students. And he starts fighting in these, you know, these bare knuckle, you know, tournaments. Then he fights in Sancho. Then he fights in Draka. Then he starts, you know, like transforming to kickboxing. And then, you know, later in his career, he started doing MMA. So you're talking about a guy that could point fight. He could do kickboxing. He could do Sancho. He could do traditional karate with, you know, Kyokushin style. Mm-hmm. I mean, he could do anything. And you know what? If MMA was, you know, let's say in California, it came late because it came here in 2006, and that's when I got into it. And he was a fighter, you know, that we had promoted. So if MMA had gotten here earlier, he would have gotten into it earlier. And I wonder how successful he could have been if he would have jumped into it earlier, because he had all the skills, you know, to do everything. And he had a good wrestling background, enough to get back up on his feet. And then and striking wise, you know, and kicking wise, man, he was so much fun to watch. It was really like, it was masterful, some of the things that he did.
In the boxing world, back in the day, I got into Pernell Whitaker, just his style. I was massively into Sweet Peas. It's kind of like just how he his flair, how he just loved to have fun. And that's something that I've obviously soaked into my style. And it's funny because my dad was the same. He's a person that would kind of add that showmanship as well as go to beat people. The obvious is like Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson for his ferociousness. Yeah, I think those were my main. And then like in terms of like on screen, I'd say Jackie Chan by far. So I had those kind of like, I get influenced by anything that I watch. It doesn't have to be just direct combat like person. Like I said, he's more, obviously Jackie Chan's an on-screen martial artist, but I would look at some of his moves and still be inspired and try them when I get into training.
Yes, of course, it's a very, very tough one. The easy response would be Muhammad Ali, because of course it's considered the greatest of all time. But the way I grew up, my first hero was Mantequilla Nápoles. And I was devastated when John H. Tracy knocked him out and took the title away from him. Then Carlos Zárate was another one that really, really got to me as a big fan. But I would say my personal favorite of all time, because of what I lived through, was Sugar Ray Leonard. When you're a kid and you have a hero that captures your imagination, that makes you dream, that makes you wake up and feel happy in life just of thinking about him. You want to be like him. You want to have a dream to ever meet him. That was Sugar Ray Leonard. Leonard was tremendous fighter, speed, power, charisma, always willing to fight the best, and he fought the best in many divisions, in many years. So I would say my all-time favorite fighter is Sugar Ray Leonard.
And the boxing I really took to, more so, a lot more so than the MMA. And I mean, it's not a very graceful fight. If you've watched it, I don't know if you've watched it, but it was like a slugfest. I really fucking went for it. We went for it. There was no skill in it. But now my boxing is really sharp, and I can move and I can feel it coming. And I like getting in there and involved. I'm a lot more technical with my boxing. So I'd love to do another boxing fight. I think I'd look good, but the MMA, I'd never do that again. Fuck that. Fuck that. No. Never.
So touching base on that, the actual MMA fight, you actually fought MC Harvey from So Solid crew.
Yeah.
So solid. And
yeah, he was.
And you apparently you actually I didn't see the bout, the MMA. I've watched your boxing bout, but you actually walked out to 21 seconds to go, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
How was that bout?
It lasted about 21 seconds. No, I'll tell you what it was. The problem that I had with that is there wasn't I mean, I'm a huge Mike Bisping fan, and you know, he watches my story every night. In fact, yesterday he put a laughing emoji on my story when I was playing golf. I was like fucking about, and he watches my story and stuff. And every time he puts something on it, I do get a bit like, oh my god, because I'm a massive fan. And
he's a big fan of yours. I mean, I've been around his house. He's got a big poster of you on his wall.
Fuck off. Oh, we've been made up, mate.
You know, he's got we'll have to get him some Laughs beer out there in California, because he's got a nice outdoor bar. So we'll have to sort that out.
So for me, it absolutely has to be Arturo Gatti. And the reason that is, he didn't always win. And sometimes there was losses, there was draws, there were big nights, but he was always exciting to watch. He was a real performer in the ring, and whatever happened, it was an entertaining fight to watch. And people always wanted to come and see him, even if win, loss, or draw. People always wanted to come and watch that. And I, as a fighter, would love people to feel like they want to come watch me fight, because it's going to be exciting. No matter what happens, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be all or nothing in there, and I'm going to leave it all in the ring for people to see, whether or not I win or lose it, or I get a draw or whatever. Like, Arturo Gatti used to be like that for me. Like, that's how I view him. And I also love his style of boxing. You know, he's a warrior. He's aggressive, but he's also got some amazing skills. And some of the fights he's been in, probably, my favourites to go back and watch. I obviously love him and Mickey Ward, the trilogy. Definitely a favourite of mine. But I like him versus Rodriguez as well. It's one of my favourite fights.
Okay.
He's losing at some point, and then suddenly he pulls out the bag, and it's just, I can always go back and watch his fights and feel excited about them. And so that's what makes him an exciting person for me to follow in the fight world, and probably my favorite fighter.
Seconds out, round 3.
I think this is what made me go into coaching so thin, because I had to retire before my time, Joe. I wasn't finished. I wasn't ready to retire, but I had to. And then I went through a real few years of pain with my knee after every session, ice blocks and on it. And then I had the operation in late 83 where I had all the ligaments done. Mm-hmm. And I was a guinea pig they called it a Macintosh repair. They repaired my ligaments with carbon fibers, but it was never right. So that was a bugbear that after every sessions, people didn't see me. I used to have to go and blow with my leg up on some pillars, get the fluid down.
Sure. And that time, Tick, so it was more of an emotional journey for you. Was it tough watching other athletes who you was in the team with go on and progress?
It was. But as I say, I didn't feel finished. So when I started coaching, the closest I could get to the mat was through whoever I was coaching. So I still had that enthusiasm to fight so much that I think it come out in the fighters, because it's not like I had to retire and I was ready to retire and I was fed up with it. I still wanted to be on the mat. I still wanted to be fighting.
What springs to mind, which is the lowest point, what you've hit, what you've had to get back up and get over it and carry on on that road? I mean, in life, we all have low points, right? No one's a robot.
Yeah.
So throughout that lovely story, which is all in the book.
All in the book. And it's going to be, and this is another cheeky plug, in the documentary, which is coming out soon.
Documentary, yeah.
And
can I pull you up on that, by the way?
Go ahead.
I was actually supposed to be in that. And the film crew couldn't get to London. They wanted to stay in the north of England. But that's the second little thing we've put out there. But when you hit the bottom, but
hold on that. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe, you're a good mate of mine. Fighters Inc. do great things.
Thank you.
Mickey Rourke, Vin Diesel, Daniel Cormier, Dana White. I'm sorry if Joe Long wasn't at the top of the list, he'd be like, "Oh, we've got time and room and budget for one more guest. Is it Vin Diesel or is it Joe Long?" You know what I mean?
It hurts me to my soul. It would be. It would be. I actually put it out there. I did actually phone you
Joe,
once, and I think
we talked like this, then maybe we would have had you on the documentary.
I am Groot. Shout out, Ben. Love you, buddy. All right.
So I did actually phone you once, and you actually superstarred me off, and you said, "Joe, I've got to go. I'm on a jet in Rio. I'm on a private jet in Rio with Vin, not even Diesel, with Vin. And I've got to go." And I put the phone down and I thought, what a tosser, he's changed.
Yeah. No, I know. What a
anyway,
wanker.
we're not talking about jet planes.
What's that song? Have you heard that song? What is it? They say you've changed. What is it? Deal with it. You know that one? I forget what's going on. They say you've changed. Fucking deal with it, Joe. Deal with it. I ain't changed. I've changed. Yeah, for the better.
I've got to give it a year. It's 2014. It's the year 2014, which started with that. After working years and years and years, the turmoil I had with the press, and that the line that got me in trouble was actually from a conversation I was having with someone in the audience in a stand-up comedy show. It's taken out of context. Do you know what I mean? It was what they considered a rape joke, but it wasn't like a Jimmy Carr rape joke that was a written joke. You know what I mean? It was I was talking about something, and a woman in the audience, I was talking about an article actually that I think it was The Guardian had done, where The Guardian had called my TV show an almanac for rape, because I was teaching men how to talk to women. And I got really angry about it because my family's been affected by sexual violence. And I said that if I wanted to teach people how to rape, I wouldn't have written 6 30-minute episodes. And a woman at the front said, "My friend Lucy loves you. She's gagging for a rape." And I went, "What's that? Lucy's gagging for a rape?" I was arguing with the press at the time. They took that clip, they put it out and said, it was stupid. I shouldn't have even been talking about it. But as a result of that, the headlines, Dapper Laughs says woman's gagging for a rape. It propelled 60,000 people sign a petition, lose the TV show. That was bad. That was the beginning of 2014. Everything I worked for, I couldn't even get a job in fucking Tesco's after that. Do you know what I mean? I lost my manager. I lost my money, lost my house, lost all my bookings, my brand deals, my TV show. I was fucked. But the biggest fight for me was 2 weeks after that, my dad passed away. And that was, for me, the biggest fight of my life coming through that. Because to be honest with you, and I don't mind talking about it because I talk about it a lot online, but I nearly killed myself, mate. I honestly look back. I still go to counselling now. Every Wednesday I talk to my counsellor about that, about my dad, and about everything that's gone on in my life. And now when I look back on it and go through it with my counsellor, I honestly can't understand how I managed to get through it, because I was on the drugs. I was on drugs, on cocaine and drinking, and my missus said she was pregnant. She got pregnant after we thought she couldn't have a baby. Got rid of her, dumped her, moved out. you know, spent my last bit of money on drugs. I was planning on killing myself, and somehow from somewhere, I decided that, you know, head down, arse up, get it all back, be a good father, you know. When I decided to get back with my missus and the baby started brewing, I knew I was going to be a dad. It was, you know, it was the end of my dad's life, but the beginning of, it was like, I felt like it was my dad saying, you know, grow up, is fucking, you have to survive. This is a baby. I did say in my stand-up that I felt like my old man had a hand in getting my missus pregnant, but it weren't like that. Do you know what I mean? But I really felt like it was my last gift from him on the last big thing, you know. And then by the time that baby came, I was still fucked for a good 3 years until after the birth of my second baby. I was still having these big emotional breakdowns and outlashes and fucking everything up. But somehow through that, now, yeah, I'm good. I'm sober. I haven't been on the drink or the drugs. Well, the drugs for a long, long time, but the drink only recent, really 6 weeks now sober I am. Not that I was drinking every day, but it was a coping mechanism, which was negative for me. And now I'm happy. 2 babies, just bought a brand new, beautiful house, businesses, comedy. So definitely losing my father.
Seconds out, round 4.
Don't lose the audience here, Hannah, because obviously you're classically trained. So let's bear in mind what the audience is, you know. I don't want to hear some classical name which I don't know about, or some bassoon player which nobody's ever heard of. What is Hannah Rankin's biggest musical inspiration and why? Obviously it can be a classical name, of course.
Okay, so non-classical?
Yeah, let's do 2. Let's break it down into 2.
Okay, so non-classical probably has to be Beyonce. She's an absolute legend. And that is somebody who knows how to perform. Like, that is what impresses me the most. Like, it's just insane. You don't get singers like that. You don't get people like that as much these days. Just such a dominant figure on stage, huge personality, huge voice, but somebody that also actually used to suffer with performance anxiety and used to get super nervous, and she had like an ulterior persona to come on stage and things like that. So just an amazing musician, amazing performer, fantastic entertainer, and someone that's just full of life. And that's what music's about. Music's about being able to draw people in to want to be part of what you're showing, part of what you want to tell them. I was always told as a musician, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and Beyonce's like that. It's all out there for you to see, love it or hate it, and I love that about her.
I don't have one specific I've never had one specific genre of music that's dictated my life where I'm like, right, I'm sold into that. I'm very heavily into R&B, which I have been consistently all the way through my life. That's probably the one genre of music that's always stayed in my life. But aside from that, I spent a lot of my teen years from like 17, 18, listening to like Dean Martin, to Sammy Davis Jr., to Sam Cooke, to Gregory Isaacs, all different types of like older generation music, which I wasn't born in, which is kind of a little bit of a contradiction to what I was talking to about the boxing, because for me, it was like, I'm answering to you a question there about who your favourite fighter is, and I'm telling you the reason why, because I don't feel like you've lived it. But then, is that a little bit hypocritical to then say, well, I'm listening to music where that wasn't my era, like some of these guys were not in my era.
So if you could pick one artist, who are you picking? Are you going back to Sinatra, or you going R&B? We want one artist off you.
Do you know what? I won't even go as much as Sinatra. I'd say Sam Cooke.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd go Sam Cooke. Yeah. Like Sinatra is, if you give me like a top 3 people music over like a 20-year space of my life that I listen to, Sinatra's in there. But Sam Cooke really, for me, and different Sam Cooke songs remind me of different parts of my life. I could listen to like a Sam Cooke song and it will literally take me back to like, not like a moment, but just a period of my life where like,
of course, yeah,
I'll think about people that I knew then, things I was doing then. But Sam Cooke is the one that does that for me.
Music has been in my passion since I was little also. I was 3 years old when one of my brothers came back from high school, and he had this record, and I remember he put it on in the speakers that my father had at the house, and these strange noises really got to my mind. It was like chains and these moving things, and it was an unbelievable moment. And actually that was the song Money, Pink Floyd, from the Dark Side of the Moon. Then I kept listening to music. I went to high school, and AC/DC became my favorite band, with so many great songs and the power of that classic rock. But today I have two definitely. Pink Floyd and AC/DC really are my favorite moments. Every day, every single day I listen to music. I play the drums. I wish I could play it more often. I have my drum set in my house. And when I have a little time and I need to really get my feelings and my thoughts in shape, I go and play the drums. And I do it to the beat of Pink Floyd and AC/DC.
Brilliant. I never had you down as a rock man. I had you a bit more smoother than that, to be perfectly honest with you.
The only person I'd say that I've stuck to, I'd say musically, near enough every album or every song that kind of he had brought out would be like Michael Jackson. But again, it's just a completely different style of music.
Completely different genre, yeah.
Yeah. That's the only person I can say that, you know, like that was genuinely, my mom even told me the first music I ever hummed to as a baby was Michael Jackson Bad.
Really?
Yeah, literally I barely crawling. I could just sit up and I would just like rock and hum to Michael Jackson Bad. So I'd say Michael Jackson is definitely, again, another person that's been an inspiration for musically in my whole life. But I think most people could say that to a degree. Maybe not as much for the youngest nowadays, but most people, especially my age and older, that Michael Jackson was so big and has inspired so many different artists that we know of now. Like, yeah, he'd only one person I could zone into.
I read the question, and I'd say the answer is quite complicated, because I think about the music that we would listen to when we were training back in the early days, right? Like when I was 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, you know, that was like, you know, quite frankly, that was the disco era back then, to be honest.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And
I'm picturing you, Scott, training to like, you know, to disco, like Saturday Night Fever or something in the dojo.
Well, I mean, believe me, we used to do demonstrations with the Bee Gees music in the background.
No,
right? I mean,
amazing.
I swear to God. And you know, Michael Jackson was really big back then, so we would do a lot of his music. And Earth, Wind & Fire was really big back then. And then, you know, as I got older, you know, it's like, you know, Queen is one of my favorite bands of all time. You know, Queen, and I've always enjoyed the Rolling Stones, enjoyed you know, let's say Led Zeppelin. Like, you know, it's quite an eclectic, you know, arrangement of music that I really enjoy. But back then, 70s, that was really, you know, like the disco era, the Michael Jackson era, the Earth, Wind & Fire era. That was kind of like the music that we would go out and listen to while we were training or performing. And then as I got older, I mean, really, it's like I love Vince Gill from country music. I love, you know, I just love a wide variety of music. But if you had to pick one band today that I really love, that I listen to all the time, is Queen. I still listen to Queen all the time.
Seconds out, round 5.
And number 3, last but not least.
Lee Evans, the comedian.
Really?
Yeah, man. I've just got to say Lee Evans because just because, like, it's not just, I don't know. I just think because he inspired me so much when I was younger. When I first ever saw a stand-up comedian, it was Lee Evans, the DVDs. And I know he'd be no good from a fighting aspect, but it would just be fucking wicked because I've never met him and he's always inspired me. And yeah, I look up to him and I just think that it'd be fucking funny to have a comedian in your corner.
Brilliant, brilliant. So did he have a big influence on you getting into comedy?
Mate, yeah, it was if this ever got out, it'd probably be like, fucking don't say that. but yeah, I can remember I was around a friend, so I didn't even really know much about stand-up comedy. I mean, I'm talking when I was about 13, 14. By the age of 13 to 14, I already wanted to be an actor. Do you know what I mean? I was actively doing auditions when I was 13, 14, 15. I auditioned for EastEnders, Grange Hill. I auditioned for loads of stuff. Never got any parts. I was a bit too much of an overactor back then. So someone actually suggested to me, have you ever thought of comedy? Because you can't fucking act, when I was younger. But I never really looked into it until one day I was at a friend's house and I was captivated by a Lee Evans. Someone put a Lee Evans DVD on and I didn't laugh. I just watched it for the solid. The whole thing is energy, what he was doing, what the audience were doing. And it was just there and then that I was like, yeah, that is what I want to do.
Clarissa Shields.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So if we go back, you and Clarissa Shields wasn't the best of friends.
Oh no.
there was some friction there.
Absolutely.
Big shout out to Clarissa actually.
Yeah.
I believe she's going to be on the FightMad podcast.
I think so.
In the weeks to come. You wasn't the best of friends. Now you are the best of friends. Tell me about that, your fight and the journey and why.
So the fight came about because I was a sparring partner for Christina Hamer at the time, she was meant to be fighting Clarissa. Then Christina got sick and nobody else wanted to take the fight. And I was like, why not? Why does no one want to take the fight? Because how are you going to know how good you are if you don't go up with someone who's claiming that they're the best, the greatest woman of all time? So I was like, well, I'll take the fight. And then I could see Clarissa and I had nothing in common that I could see at the time. I was just like, she thought I was some country bumpkin from the middle of nowhere in Scotland, and I thought she was this crazy girl from Detroit in America. I was just like from Flint, Michigan, and I was like, I know nothing about you. Like, we have nothing in common. You're argumentative, you're loud, you're aggressive. And then I was just like, we're just chalk and cheese. And as the fight progressed, it was a fantastic build-up to a fight because we genuinely disliked each other. She said she was going to knock me out in 4 rounds. I said, you've never knocked anyone out. So it's all that sort of stuff. We had a big build-up towards the fight. And it was a genuine dislike. And that sometimes adds something to a fight, It always adds that little bit of needle that makes it exciting to watch. Then we had 10 rounds of war. And when I look back on it, that fight was probably my real sort of baptism of fire into the fight game at the top level. I was going in against someone who was a 2 times Olympic gold medalist. She won multiple world titles. And I was going in there, this kid from the middle of nowhere in Scotland. And I was just like, bring it on. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned how to speak in the public eye. We were getting beamed around the world for the press conferences. I learned how to have a stand-up press conference live in front of people, and how I reacted to that under pressure. Then how I reacted to Clarissa under pressure in the ring. And I would say, when I look back on that fight, it's one of those weird experiences. Like, when we finished, we were still going at each other after the bell. And it wasn't until after that fight where I started working with her manager, Mark Taffet, and I was signed with Dimitri Salita with Salita Promotions, both Carissa's promoter and manager. We were on the same card later on in Detroit. We were going to be fighting. And we did some sparring in the lead up to that. And Noel and Mark Taffet were like, Noel said to Mark, are you sure you want this to happen? Because I don't really think they got it all out there in the fight. And are you sure? Because they both got fights coming up. But after those 6 or 7, 8 rounds or whatever it was in the 5th Street gym in Miami, after that, we were like, that's it all out. And I could really respect her. And we suddenly realized we had quite a lot in common about like our determination, our drive, our discipline, our goals, what we thought about women's boxing, how competitive we both were. So yeah, we've been really good friends ever since.
I actually remember, did Jacko, your friend Jacko, do your corner once?
Jacko did do my corner, yeah. I think he did, yeah.
Yeah, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, I know where this is going. You're like, you never had me in your corner, did you, Mike? Callum did my corner once.
Which must have been amazing. So in life,
just on that, Callum was in my corner. It was terrible. He gave terrible advice. I'm like, son, you're fired. No, that's not why it was terrible. What are you talking about? You should have bob. I should have weaved. You're done. You're sacked. No, what happened was, you know, when you're walking into the ring, Brad's going to the octagon, and you know, you hug all your cornermen, you say best of luck, or whatever it is. You know, sometimes you fist bump or whatever. At that moment, I turned around, I gave Callum a big hug, and I was almost crying. Well, in fact, I was. My tears welled up, and it's an emotional moment. You know, I'm going to go to battle, and my son's there. I don't know. And then now afterwards, he was like, "Dad, I love that. Can I do your next one, please?" I said, "Son, it was very special for me, and I loved it." I said, "But I'm going to say no." I said, "Because I got too emotional." I said, "I was going into fight." I said, "I don't need that kind of distraction." You know what I mean? And he fully understood. He said, "No, I get it, Dad," because he saw me being a little wimp, having to wipe my eyes.
But let's be honest. You are, you know, people know you as, you know, brash, honest, open guy. But you are a deep soul. You do think a lot. You are deep.
Thank you. No,
in a nice way. I'm not being condescending. That's genuine.
No, I know that, John. Thank you very much. And because often the image that I portray is like that, my public persona, if you will.
Correct.
So, and certainly on my podcast, that kind of what's the word, perpetuates that as well. But you know, of course,
and you play on it a little.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I do. I play on it a little bit, and you know, and it's fun. You know, you live up to that character and whatnot. But that's not who I really am.
Of course, my father has to be in that corner. He's my inspiration. He was my everything. So he would be the chief corner. But if you allow me to take away my father, to bring 3 persons to that team, one would be Nelson Mandela. The inspiration, the unbelievable struggle that he had to go through in a very small room for 24 years in prison, and walk out of prison without any hate, and with love and with compassion and with inspiration and leadership. Nelson Mandela, without a doubt, would be a member of my team. Mr. Carlos Slim, a Lebanese raised in Mexico, very successful in business. At one time, he was the richest man in the world, but so humble, so dedicated, so special, and so caring. He has taught me many, many lessons only through watching his actions and his deeds, that he would be another great inspiration and lead to my expectations. And the last one would be Pope Francis. He has come into our lives, even taking away the religion factor of him. Of course, religion has brought to him the opportunity to reach millions. But what I have seen, to be able to change 20 centuries of beliefs, of practices, and to try to bring them up to the 2021, the mentality to be able at 84 years old to understand the need to bring up to date what 20th centuries were used to do one way, and his passion and dedication, his leadership, and his relentless search for human equality, for love, for compassion, for peace. He would be my other member of my team.
So that's it for this week, people. Best of compilation was an absolute blast. Thanks to Andreas and the team for putting together that amusing, funny, in-depth compilation. We're going to be back for episode 9 with a real special insider, the one and only Mr. Mark Goddard, UFC and multiple organisation referee for MMA. And he's also crossing over with a couple of other bits as well. Worked with Mark the last few weeks on the Arnolds with the English Mixed Martial Arts Federation and their event that weekend, and it was an absolute delight to work with him over the weekend, and can't wait to get Mark on as a guest for episode 9. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, the FightMad Podcast. Also give us a follow on social media, on all social media at Fighters Inc. I'm your host, Joe Long, and until episode 9 with Mark Goddard, take care and I'll see you soon.